Hello, this is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. Welcome to Sunday Update for the 7th day of February 2010. And now for the real news. Internet censorship is back at the forefront this week after a series of incidents that have many concerned about the loss of online liberties. Earlier this week, both Time magazine and the New York Times simultaneously came out with opinion pieces arguing for new licenses to be distributed by a global internet authority to help prevent computer hacking. It is unclear, however, how licensing internet users will actually reduce crime by hackers who use proxies to mask their identity in the first place. In recent developments, reports indicate that Alex Jones's popular PrisonPlanet.com and Infowars.com websites are being censored in New Zealand. Claire Swinney of the Web of Evidence blog is reporting that a number of New Zealanders using ISPs that rely on Asia Netcom for international internet traffic have been unable to reach the websites in the past 2 days. Paul Joseph Watson of PrisonPlanet.com wrote one of the key articles exposing the Time and New York Times articles as puff pieces by an establishment media that is concerned with dwindling revenue as the blogosphere continues to usurp their monopoly over information. Now, Google is asking for the National Security Agency's help in fighting off cyber attacks. Breathless coverage of the Google-NSA relationship in the establishment press signally fails to note that Obama's cybersecurity czar resigned last year, warning of how the NSA is attempting to take over America's cybersecurity infrastructure. Also not mentioned in recent coverage of the Google-NSA relationship is ex-CIA officer Robert David Steele's revelation to Homeland Security Today in 2006. Quote, Google, has been taking money and direction for elements of the U.S. intelligence community, including the Office of Research and Development at the CIA, In-Q-Tel, and in all probability, both the National Security Agency and the Army's Intelligence and Security Command, end quote. The recent push in the controlled corporate media for instituting internet licenses stems from remarks made at the World Economic Forum in Davos last month by Craig Mundie, Microsoft's Chief Research and Technology Officer. Speaking about the need for a global internet regulatory authority, he is quoted as saying, quote, "We need a kind of World Health Organization for the internet. When there is a pandemic, it organizes the quarantine of cases. We are not allowed to organize the systematic quarantine of machines that are compromised," end quote. In other news, Wolfgang Wodarg, the former president of the Health Commission of the Council of Europe, appeared on the Alex Jones Show this week to discuss the ongoing investigation into how the World Health Organization knowingly misled the public about last year's H1N1 pandemic in order to sell vaccines for pharmaceutical companies connected to the WHO's flu advisors.
Because we have seen that the governments had to ordered a lot of vaccines, and they were obliged. They made marketing commitments with pharmaceutical companies because they were threatened by specialists, by scientists, that there could be something very dangerous coming. And so they just made those contracts. And within those contracts, which were secret, which we could not see as parliamentarians, there was written that the WHO was at the trigger to say, this is a pandemic, and if they say it, then the whole business was on, and they had to take the vaccines for pandemic use. And this were about $18 billion worldwide value, and this is a lot of money in health. So we were wondering, because of this mild flu, how such an enormous waste of money could happen, and how millions of people could have been vaccinated parallelly to the seasonal vaccination, so it's a double vaccination, without any scientific evidence to do so.
In remarks to the recent meeting of the WHO's executive board, WHO Director General Margaret Chan lamented that, quote, "The days when health officials could issue advice based on the very best medical and scientific data and expect populations to comply may be fading," end quote. Finally this week, the pronouncements of the Climatic Research Unit are increasingly under scrutiny from all corners. The CRU is one of the key institutions involved in the IPCC report that argue that climate change is man-made, and have been under intense criticism for the past 3 months since internal emails and documents were leaked showing that fudge factors were introduced into climate models to produce expected results. In a startling development, the London Guardian, one of the chief proponents of the anthropogenic global warming hypothesis in the corporate media, has released several articles this week taking the CRU researchers to task for breaking the law and violating basic principles of open and honest science in their research. On February 4th, The Guardian published an article admitting that the climategate emails, initially dismissed as a case of stolen information perpetrated by an unnamed shadowy conspiracy, is almost certainly the result of a leak from a dissatisfied insider at the University of East Anglia. On February 3rd, they published a story showing how the researchers in fact broke the law by denying legitimate Freedom of Information requests for the raw data that they had manipulated to produce their results. On February 2nd, they produced a report on how the peer review process itself has come under question, as the emails raised doubt about the groupthink process and political machinations that help to keep dissenting opinions out of the literature. And on February 1st, The Guardian published an expose about how CRU director Phil Jones had knowingly attempted to hide problems with data about Chinese weather stations that were central to a 1990 paper that purported to show that the well-known urban heat island defect was in fact negligible. Bizarrely, the paper claims that this problem in the data was in fact discovered and exclusively revealed by The Guardian this week, when in fact it has been known and talked about on climist realist sites for years. As official editorial stance, The Guardian still claims that the science behind the anthropogenic global warming theory is unassailable. Now, stay tuned for episode 116 of the Corbett Report, Vancouver 2010 and the Terror Olympics, where we discuss Olympic protests, an encroaching Vancouver police state, and the possibility of false flag terror, with Kevin Annett of hiddenfromhistory.org and DJ Ball of wearechangevancouver.org.